Hello everyone to another episode of Important Locations for Map-Based Questions. This initiative has been brought to you by Aptiplus Academy for Civil Services. My name is Shaik Datta. I'm the faculty for Geography and Environment at Aptiplus Academy for Civil Services. In this initiative, we are looking at the important places which have been there in the news in the past 1 year and hence which become relevant for the upcoming UPSC Prelims 2020. So till now, we have looked at various places around the world as well as in India. We are now going to look at many other places which were also in the news so far as India is concerned. So let us look at the important places which were there in the news. So again, just like in the previous case also, we are going to look at these places in a part-wise manner. So today is the next part of the important locations from India. So another important location which has been there in the news in the past 1 year is with regards to Bukkapatna Chinkara Wildlife Sanctuary. WLS over here, it refers to wildlife sanctuary. So Bukkapatna, what is meant by Chinkara? Chinkara basically is an antelope. As you can see over here, the animal that you can see, that is what is called as Chinkara. So this Bukkapatna Chinkara Wildlife Sanctuary, it has got established in Tumkur. And where is Tumkur? Tumkur is in Karnataka. Okay, so that is why this particular area was in the news. Okay, this is a sanctuary or wildlife sanctuary which is dedicated for the conservation of the Chinkara or the Indian antelope. So this Bukkapatna Wildlife Sanctuary or this Bukkapatna Chinkara Wildlife Sanctuary, which is in Tumkur in Karnataka, this is the southernmost tip. Just show you. This is the southernmost tip of the distribution of Chinkara in India. Okay, this is the southernmost tip of the distribution of Chinkara in case of India. This wildlife sanctuary, it has a unique savanna habitat. What is meant by a savanna habitat? A savanna habitat basically implies it has a tropical grassland habitat. And this tropical grassland habitat is essential for the survival of the rare Chinkara. So this kind of species, they depend a lot on the speed, and hence it is necessary that they need open vast spaces like the grassland. So when we say savanna habitat or savanna grassland basically refers to a tropical grassland habitat. When we look at, and as you might be aware, whenever you have to look at a species, especially from the UPSC Prelims point of view, you have to definitely look at its IUCN status. So when we look at the IUCN status of the Chinkara, it is a species of least concern. As you might be aware, IUCN, it comes up with a list which is called as the red list of threatened species. So under this list, we have a number of status, which are also called as conservation status. Each species, whichever has been studied and for which we have sufficient data, they will be provided with some status as per the red list of threatened species. And on looking at the status, it will become easier for us to understand what is the status of the species in the wild, what is the status of the population of these species in the wild, whether they are present in large numbers or whether they are, let's say for example, if you have a species like the Chinkara whose IUCN status is that of least concern, which basically means that their population is quite healthy and stable in the natural world, and hence there is no need of concern as of now. But as the numbers keep on falling, as the population declines over a period of time due to natural or due to man-made causes, we get to see that slowly the species will slowly move towards the other end of this entire scale of the conservation status. And on the other side of the scale, we have the conservation status to be threatened. Okay, so under threatened also we have vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered species. So basically, it is like this. Okay, let's say a species, if it has not been evaluated yet, then the species will have the status as NE, which means it has not been evaluated. There has been no studies made, nothing. On the other hand, if evaluation has been done, then also there is a possibility that the species might be very rare. It might be very rare, it might be very shy, or it might even be very nocturnal in nature. So if a species is like this, it is very rare or it is very shy or very nocturnal, in that case, even if you try to conduct a study or if you try to conduct some surveys and all, it might be possible that you might not get sufficient data with regards to the species. So you see, if no study is conducted, then the species is called as it is not evaluated, NE. If evaluation has been done, if studies have been conducted, but despite of conducting studies, no such detailed information or sufficient information has been you have been able to find out sufficient information, in that case the species will be called as a data deficient species. Evaluation has been done, but there's not sufficient amount of data available, then it becomes a data deficient species. Next, let's say evaluation has been done, you also have data. Now once you have data, in that case you can assign it different status. For example, if the data shows that the species is in very large number, if the population is very large, in that case the species will be called as a species of least concern. For example, like in this case we get to see the chinkara, this is a species of least concern. On the other hand, it is possible that again due to some kind of a man-made or natural reason, their population might decline. And if the population declines, then from a species of least concern, it moves to the next part and towards the threatened category. So now it will be called as a near threatened species. Now it will be called as a near threatened species. It has not yet moved or it has not yet become a threatened species, but now it will be called as a near threatened entity. On the other hand, if the population still keeps on declining and there is further fall of the population, तब जाके this particular species will enter into the threatened category. Under the threatened category, you have three subcategories. Under the threatened category, which is like a, you can say a super category, under that you have three subsets. What are the three subsets? From near threatened, the species will first enter into the vulnerable status. Vulnerable is also a part of the threatened category, but it is the first section, you can say. If the population further declines, in that case the species will move from the vulnerable part to the next part, which is called as endangered. And if there is further decline of the population, the endangered state will move into critically endangered. If there is further decline, tab jaake from critically endangered it will become extinct in the wild. When I say extinct in the wild, EW, that basically implies the species is no longer found in its natural habitat. It is found, but that is in confinement. It is kept in captivity, not in the natural habitat. Finally, it is possible that due to inbreeding or because of any other reason, the species is not able to survive even in captivity. So when it is no longer able to survive even in captivity, then we say that the species has become extinct. When a species becomes extinct, that means it is not found globally, neither in its natural environment, nor in the captive state. So it is not found anywhere. Okay. So that is the entire concept regarding the IUCN status, which is a list of threatened species basically. Now, next thing that you should remember is, as I told you, okay, these species, that is chinkara, they prefer open kind of vegetation, because if there is too dense vegetation, then they will not be able to achieve the speed that they usually do. So the thing is, Thor Desert, that is the Indian desert, it has the highest population of the chinkara. It has the highest population of the chinkara, and we get to see that the chinkara, it occurs across more than 80 protected areas in India. Outside India also it is found, where in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, such kind of arid areas it will be found. Okay, so it is found across, not just, but this is the southernmost, you can say southernmost part, the southernmost tip of the habitat of the chinkara, but not only in the Bukkapatna Chinkara Wildlife Sanctuary in Tumkur in Karnataka is it found, it is found in 80 other protected areas of India. Not only in India, but outside India also we get to see it is found in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, and all such areas. Okay, so this is with regards to both things. Number one is Bukkapatna Chinkara Wildlife Sanctuary, where it is located. Next, you also have got to know something regarding the chinkara, where it is found, what is its IUCN status, etc., etc. Also, I've given you some extra information regarding the IUCN status, the various status which are there. You should remember it in a sequential manner, that is more important. Okay. Next up, we will look at another thing which was there in the news. So another thing which was there in the news is what is called as Era Matti Divalu. Era Matti Divalu. Now, what does this Era Matti Divalu basically signify? First of all, where is this Era Matti Divalu? So please remember this Era Matti Divalu. It is in Vizag in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, Visakhapatnam or Vizag, as it is popularly called. So it is found in Vizag or Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. Now, what is meant by Era Matti Divalu? As you can understand, because it is found in Vizag in case of Andhra Pradesh, so it is a Telugu word. And what does this Telugu word signify? It means red sand dunes or red mud hillocks which are created naturally. Red sand dunes or red mud hillocks. Okay, so Era Matti Divalu basically means red sand dunes or red mud hillocks, simply also called as red hills, etc. The interesting part about this is if you look at these small hills of low elevation, they are actually all very red in color and they are also naturally created. Now, how did this happen? You see, Era Matti Dibalu, it is dissected and stabilized coastal area basically. The red sediment mounds located between Vishakhapatnam and Bhimunipatna in Andhra Pradesh. So where exactly is it located? Between Vishakhapatnam and Bhimunipatna. These are two places in Andhra Pradesh where we get to see, or within these two places, we get to see the Era Matti Dibalu. What are they? They are natural ravines and they are formed over the years due to wind currents and soil erosion. What is ravine? If you have gone through your physical geography part, then you should remember okay, there are different stages of soil erosion. The soil erosion takes place through various stages. For example, the first stage of soil erosion starts as soon as the raindrops hit the soil surface. What happens is when the raindrops they hit the surface of the soil, one part of the raindrop will be absorbed by the soil, and that part of the raindrops that will percolate into the lower layers of the soil. There's another part of the rain, and that will start to flow along the surface of the soil. So what I'm trying to say is this: okay, you have the surface of the soil, and you will have rain falling on the soil. So one part of the falling rain will be absorbed by the soil, and all this water will percolate into the lower layers, whereas another part of this rainwater it will start to flow along the surface of the soil. So that part which starts to flow along the surface of the soil is called surface runoff. That is what is referred to as surface runoff. There is another part which will start to percolate into the lower layers. Now what happens is as soon as the raindrops hit the soil surface, जहाँ पे भी वो hit करते हैं ना, because it hits with a force. As you can understand, the raindrops they are falling from a great height. So naturally, as soon as they hit the surface of the earth, they will impart a lot of force, or they will hit the earth with a lot of force, and because of this force what happens is there is some amount of soil particles which gets dislodged from that particular area. Some amount of soil particles will get dislodged from that particular area. This kind of an erosion, or this is the first stage of erosion, and this erosion is what is called as splash erosion. This erosion is what is referred to as splash erosion. Next, after splash erosion, what happens? It is possible that some of this water might be able to remain over the surface of the soil in the form of a thin sheet of water. Some of this falling rainwater, it might be able to remain on top of the soil surface in the form of a thin sheet of water. And that is, and finally we'll get to see that, like, let's say rainfall has taken place, and after the entire rainfall having taken place, you will find that there is a thin sheet of water still remaining on the surface of the soil, which over a period of time will drain into the surrounding water bodies. But when this water will drain into the surrounding water bodies, what will happen is this: it will take some particles of soil along with it. The particles of soil which will be taken out by the thin sheet of water while it is getting drained into the surrounding water bodies, that soil will also be taken in a sheet-like manner. So you will find one entire sheet of soil will be taken out by this water once when it is draining out into the surrounding water bodies. This is the second stage of soil erosion, which is called as sheet erosion. तो आपको क्या करना है? आपको याद रखना है sequential order में soil erosion होता कैसे. Number one is the splash erosion. Number two is the sheet erosion. Even after sheet erosion has taken place, you will still find that there are small streams of water which are still flowing over the ground. After all that sheet of water has gone into the surrounding water bodies, even after that, if you look at at a field, let's say you have a field near your house, if you go and look at that field, you will find that there are small streams of water still flowing, and these small streams of water, it will cut up the entire land into, or it will create small, it will create shallow, you can say valley like features. इनको हम लोग rills कहते हैं, rills. So these streams, which are very temporary streams, basically these streams they will create rills. So this is the third state of soil erosion, or the third stage of soil erosion, जिसको हम लोग कहते हैं rill erosion. तो पहले क्या था? पहले you had splash erosion के बाद we had sheet erosion के बाद we had rill erosion. Now, ideally, the farmer, whoever has the land, agricultural land, so ideally the farmer should try to stop this rill erosion from taking place. How will he stop the rill erosion? एक हो सकता है कि let's say he can create something like check dams. Check dams can be created because what do check dams do? Check dams are nothing but small structures which are created by piling stones one on top of the other. So when you pile stones on one on top of the other, what happens is that those streams which are flowing over the ground, they might face some obstacle and they might not be able to flow very fast. Hence, soil erosion to some extent can be reduced that way. That is one possibility which is there. Okay. So that this is what is called as so ideally whenever rill erosion takes place, the farmer should try to do something to stop rill erosion from taking place. But if the farmer does not do anything, in that case those rills which were like shallow valleys, they will start to become deeper and deeper, and eventually we'll get to see they will form something which is called as gullies. So gullies, once they get formed, then you get to see that the entire land, it will get fragmented into pieces in such a manner that it becomes impossible to carry out agriculture anymore. तब जाके इसको कहा जाता है गली इरोशन. ठीक है, तो पहले क्या था स्प्लैश इरोशन, फिर जाके और शीट इरोशन, फिर क्या हुआ रिल इरोशन, then you had gully erosion. Once gullies are formed, na, gullies they become bigger and bigger and they will form very deep trench-like features. They will form very deep trench-like features जिनको हम लोग कहते हैं as ravines. And once ravines are formed, तब जाके the entire land becomes unfit for carrying out cultivation and agriculture. तब जाके उसको कहा जाता है as a badland. So that is how badland topography is created. Badland topography is created due to excessive erosion taking place and very deep erosion taking place. ये कहाँ पे देखा जाता है? जहाँ पे there will be heavy rainfall, जहाँ पे there is less amount of vegetation, तो तब जाके हम लोग देख सकते हैं कि there is a high chance of badland topography getting formed in such an area. तो सिमिलरली ऐसा ही हुआ है कि एरामाटी डिबालू जहाँ पे है, ये जो हिल लाइक फीचर्स है, ये हिल कैसे बना है? अब दोनों हिल के बीच तो वैली होगा, तो ये वैली कैसे बना? वैलीज आर those are actually not valleys, those are the ravines. Okay? And if you are standing on the floor of the ravine, तो naturally side वाला जो portion है, those will appear to you to be like hills, but in reality you are actually standing at the bottom of a ravine. ठीक है? So you see over here, Eramatti Dibalu, they are dissected and stabilized coastal area for these red sediment mounds. They are located between Vishakhapatnam and Bhimunipatna in Andhra Pradesh. These are natural ravines and they are formed over years due to wind currents and due to soil erosion. They have got the geographical indication tag. So it is very, very exclusive to this particular area of Vizag, Andhra Pradesh. So this is how they look like, Eramatti Dibalu. Or in other words, they're also called as red sand hill. So basically what has happened is this entire land used to be there, but now you get to see because of wind erosion, because of soil erosion, all this soil is gone, and now what you have are deep valley-like features. For example, I think I have another diagram. Yeah, so something like this. You can understand that all these areas actually contain the red soil. This is like red and yellow soil, but all of this has got washed away. Soil erosion हो गया है. Soil erosion होने की वजह से what has happened is you have red hill like features. मतलब in appearance they look to be red hills, but actually they are not. Similarly, I would also like to tell you one more thing. Okay, when we talk about soil erosion taking place, and soil erosion से अगर badland topography form होता है, तो तब देखो normal soil erosion, whenever we say normal soil erosion is basically the top layer of the soil getting washed away, okay, or the top layer of the soil becoming infertile, losing its fertility. तब जाके उसको हम लोग ये कह सकते हैं कि there is soil erosion taking place. मतलब अगर सॉइल डिग्रेडेशन या सॉइल इरोशन होता है, उसका मतलब ये है कि टॉप सॉइल का मतलब है कि लेयर ए लेयर, ए होराइजन या ए लेयर, so that is getting affected. On the other hand, there is soil erosion. On the other hand, if I talk about badland topography, तब जाके it basically means that the soil erosion has been extremely intense, and because of intense soil erosion, what has happened is it has actually gone all the way up to like not only A layer but A, E and even B layer might also get affected. So if A, O, A, E, three layers, you must have heard about soil profile, you must have heard about soil horizon, so I'm not going into that part. But if you have badland getting formed, tab jaake O layer that is the topmost layer which is there, which is mainly made up of organic matter, that will anyhow get eroded. उसके बाद A layer जो है, that is the top soil, that will also get eroded. और उसके नीचे जो E layer है, that is the alluviated layer, that will also undergo erosion, तभी जाके form होता है badland topography. तो please याद रखना कि what is the difference between soil erosion and badland topography formation. Soil erosion is simply the loss of the topsoil which is very fertile. उसका अगर loss होता है तो simply we call it to be soil erosion. But अगर badland topography कहते हैं तो that means the organic layer, topsoil as well as उसके नीचे जो layer है, which is also called as the E layer or the alluviated layer, that is also getting lost. So this is here Eramatti Divalu. Next place which was there in the news, that is the Sambar Lake. This is the next place which was there in the news. This is Sambar Lake. Now, why Sambar Lake was in the news? Sambar Lake was in the news because over here we get to see last year thousands and thousands of birds were found to be dead. So many thousands of birds were found to be dead. Some official figures are there, but of course unofficially we get to see that the numbers are actually much higher. Why was it in the news? It was because of the deaths of thousands of migratory birds due to a particular disease which is called as avian botulism. Avian is referring to birds. Botulism is the name from which we get to see that this entire disease has taken place. So botulism is basically the microbes. So because of the deaths of thousands of migratory birds due to avian botulism, that is why this was in the news. So we'll go to avian botulism, but usse pehle question ye hai ki what do we know regarding the Sambar Lake? Now the Sambar Lake, it is an example of a saltwater lake or a saline lake. Okay, it is an example of a saltwater lake or a saline lake, which you can understand the salinity is काफी high. Why is the salinity high? Salinity is high because it is present in an area where the temperature is very high, and automatically there will be a lot of evaporation taking place. At the same time, rainfall is not really high over here. So what happens is that continuous evaporation होने के वजह से salt becomes concentrated, and it hence is the largest inland saltwater lake of India. So Sambar Lake, please याद रखना कि Sambar Lake, it is the India's largest inland saltwater lake or India's largest inland saline lake, and it is found in Rajasthan. And apart from Rajasthan, so where in Rajasthan, which district? So you have Nagaur district, Ajmer district and Jaipur district. These are the districts where we get to see Sambar Lake is found. It is the largest, India's largest inland saltwater lake. It's found in Rajasthan. Now, how big is it? So we get to see over 5,700 square kilometer is its catchment area. What is meant by catchment area? When you say catchment area, we basically mean to say all that geographic area which is contributing water to that particular river and its tributaries. उसको हम लोग कहते हैं as the catchment area of the river. So what is catchment area? That entire geographical region which is supplying water to a particular river and its tributaries. तो उस entire area को हम लोग क्या कहते हैं? We call it to be the catchment area. Now, why did this particular you can say tragedy take place? Because so many birds every year they come to feed in the various lakes. When do they come? You find these migratory birds, they will come during the winter, because most of these birds they belong to polar regions or regions which are beyond the Arctic Antarctic circle. And what happens is that winters they are so severe over here. These birds are not able to tolerate the heat, and so they are not able to tolerate the cold because it becomes so cold over there during the winter that they tend to fly and come to tropical countries during the winter. Okay. So, and India, they are bound to protect these species because India, it is a part of CMS convention, that is Convention on Migratory Species of Wild Animals. Now, why this entire thing happened in this year? Is it the first time that avian botulism is taking place? Answer is no. Is India the only country which got affected by avian botulism? Answer is no. So one thing that we are sure of is this: avian botulism is a very common disease. It has been there for a long period of time. But what happened this time due to which the avian botulism became so very intense? Let us try to understand. So temperature was quite high, around 60 to 92 degree Fahrenheit. We get to see toxin production takes place in decaying animal carcasses. Flies they deposit eggs on carcasses which are fed upon by resulting maggots. Okay, so temperature has to be quite high. Temperature was quite high, around 60 to 92 degree Fahrenheit. And we get to see that due to decaying animal carcasses, we get to see toxin production takes place, and flies, they will deposit eggs on the carcasses which are fed upon by the resulting maggots. Maggots you can understand because they are feeding upon the animal carcasses, so they are actually accumulating these toxins within them. Now what happens, these toxic maggots, they will be fed upon by the duck and the other species of migratory birds. So as you can understand, if the ducks they feed upon these maggots, what is happening, something which is called as biomagnification is taking place, right? Biomagnification या bioamplification का मतलब क्या है? Biomagnification या bioamplification basically implies that as you go higher up the food chain, the concentration of a toxin which has entered the food chain, the concentration of the toxin will keep on becoming more and more concentrated as you go higher up the food chain. So the concentration of the toxin or the toxic substance in the tissues of the animal, so that concentration that will keep on increasing. तब जाके हम लोग ये कह सकते हैं कि बायोमैग्निफिकेशन या बायो एम्प्लीफिकेशन हो रहा है। तो इधर भी हम लोग वही चीज देख सकते हैं कि the maggots they feed upon these toxins, and naturally inside their bodies there is a concentration of these toxin materials taking place. What will the birds do? They will feed upon these maggots. So if the birds they feed upon these maggots, they are increasing, or there is increasing intake of such kind of toxic matter within their bodies. And finally, what will happen? We will eventually get to see that these birds they will start to die. Okay, the birds, the death, and the additional carcasses, they will start to die, and that death will happen in very large numbers. Once they start to die, what will happen? Again, the same cycle will get repeated, because now within the bodies of these dead birds, we already have the toxin being present, and there will also be so many maggots present as well. The maggots will once again feed upon the birds, and the same cycle will keep on continuing, and as a result of which we get to see thousands and thousands of birds have died. So avian botulism, please remember the name. So here I have got some newspaper cuttings. For example, you can see over here, what is avian botulism? It is a serious neuromuscular illness of birds which is caused by a toxin that is produced by the bacterium Clostridium botulinum, and death happens ultimately due to respiratory failure. So please remember the name Clostridium botulinum. Clostridium botulinum is the name of the bacterium which causes this particular disease. And why does the death take place? It takes place due to respiratory failure. Now, investigation has been conducted by experts at the Apex Center for Animal Disease Investigation, Monitoring and Surveillance, College of Veterinary and Animal Sciences. And we get to see that what happens is there's a lot of paralysis in the birds taking place. Paralysis, for example, in the legs, in the wings and necks, all of these areas will become paralyzed over a period of time. Then the birds, where they were unable to walk, swim or take flight, and there was no rise of body temperature, no nasal discharge, no respiratory distress or any other sign as such. Okay. And after we get to see around 1,829 carcasses were discovered on a single day. Like this, the entire thing went on, and we get to see unofficial sources, they say that almost 60,000 birds had died in this due to this avian botulism. And here some kind of in the recommendations of the investigation into avian botulism has been talked about. For example, what are the recommendations? So all the carcass from the area should be removed as early as possible in order to avoid feeding on healthy birds or feeding off healthy birds on ingestion of preferred botulinum toxin. Since the area of lake is too vast, a sufficient number of teams must be deployed to collect and dispose of the carcass. C is the teams must be asked to go to possible deeper waters to remove the carcasses. Next is the collected carcasses must be put immediately into the body bags before transportation, so that spoilage of contents from carcasses on the ground it is avoided. Next, the collected carcasses should be preferably burned or buried deep in the earth. That is another thing. Next is the stoppage of mortality will depend on how efficiently the carcasses of birds or any other animals in the area are disposed of. And lastly, the affected and rescued animals should not be transported to longer distances. Temporary rescue centers may be arranged at the site near the lake and palliative treatment should be given. So these were the recommendations of the investigation report into the deaths of thousands of birds after feeding on the waters of the Sambar Lake. Okay. So there is another also there are a lot of more news, not just another one, but there are more such news that we have to look at. We look at the location of Sambar Lake, study a bit regarding Sambar Lake and why this avian botulism has taken place. So that already we have covered Sambar Lake. Please go through it even once again. Also, we have seen Eramati Dipalu. What are they? They are like red hills, and not just that, but we have also looked at the new wildlife sanctuary which has been created in Karnataka, especially in the Tumkur district, and we get to see that it is called as the Bukkapatna Wildlife Sanctuary. And this Bukkapatna Wildlife Sanctuary, this Bukkapatna Chinkara Wildlife Sanctuary is the southernmost tip of the distribution of Chinkara in case of India. Okay, so with this we complete today's session. We have looked at a number of important locations. Of course, there are many more that we have to look at, and we'll be looking at it in our next episode. So till then, have a good time, study hard, and if you have liked our video, please let us know in the comment section. Please share with your friends as well, all those who are preparing for UPSC. And at the same time, please subscribe to Aptplus Academy for Civil Services YouTube channel for more such informative videos. So we'll be back again with another episode on India. So till then, take care and study hard. Thank you so much.